everyone. Welcome back to the Creatively Thinking podcast. Join Carolyn Botello as she uncovers the inspirations behind some incredibly creative minds that are orbiting our local communities. Okay, hello. Hello, no Kuremoto. So yeah, I found you on the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibit a little while ago, and I just had to talk to you. So yeah, I wanted to learn about your creative practice. Noe Kuremoto is an artist whose work sits poised at the junction between modernity, memory, and mythology, using ancient stories to simplify modern discontent into childlike talismans for meaning. Originally from Japan, currently living with her family in London, UK, while she builds a studio in a national park in Lithuania. So, yeah, let's just do a deep dive on your creative practice. So, how did becoming a sculptor artist as a career come about? Was it loving what you can do with your hands, being connected with your emotional well-being, or something else?
So I have to take you back to 1990s when I moved to London. That's where I started my career as an artist. Let's say sculpt. Right now, I am known as ceramic artist, I guess, or some people call me ceramicist. I started study conceptual art at Central St. Martin in 1990s. That's where it all begins in a Soho, buzzing. Vivienne Westwood is doing crazy catwalk, and Tracy Amy is presenting a bed. She's making a trouble at the Royal College of Art. Damien Hirst, sheep. You know, this landscape of conceptual art was something so alive, and it felt like it's urgent to act with this conceptually driven art. This was not something it was familiar to me when I was in Japan. I'm more classically, formally, academically trained, fine art. Now, perhaps I can take you back to my childhood. I was born in Osaka. I grew up in Osaka too. My father is still an artist. He was teaching a lot when I was little. He's a professor of fine art, and I grew up with a lot of artists, printmakers, sculptor, photographer, musician, poets. And that was very soul enriching environment for a child like me. I often thought that's how all the adult life is like. Everyone's making music, drawing and smoking, reading a poetry to each other. Turned out to be around the primary school as I went to school, I heard things like, "Oh, Daddy's going to office." Like, "Oh, what's that?" Like, "Oh, my dad's wears suits and go to work." Like, "Oh, oh, I guess my dad does that too." And I saw my neighbor's dad coming back rather knackered and tired and irritated after, the Japanese father often work easily 12, 14 hours a day. And I thought, wow, what a strange, your dad looks exhausted from life. And my parents are just often listening to music, eating, and friends are coming in the midweeks, drinking, drawing, dancing. full of life in our family home. So I always knew that I,
Hmm.
I really don't want to be in the other side. It looked like soulless life. But then I re also realized that was a majority of the world. So this is the background of how it sort of grew
Hmm.
up with a family full of artists all the time, uh, with the contrast of Japanese economic bubble era. Technology was thriving in Japan. Uh, Money was never the issue. Then the bubble busted. A lot of people end up jobless. A lot of people couldn't pay mortgage in the end. Adults were stressed. Um, so it was a tension in Japan as I grew up. Uh, and I had able to steal my father's magazines, art magazine. I started to become familiar with performance art, what's going on in New York, what's going on in London. They look rather exciting, and that's not something I could
Hmm.
see immediately in Tokyo or Osaka. Uh, and I started to dream about studying
Hmm.
in Central St. Martin in London. So as I arrived, like I said, Tracy Emin's and Damien Hirst, Sarah Lucas, Marina Abramovich, they're all active, and if anything, they look like a revolutionizing the landscape of fine art. So I decided to abandon everything I knew, how to draw, how to paint, how to sculpt, all the academic fine art skill set that I had. I think number one, it looked outdated, poor cousin of fine art. Probably number two, my professors at St. Martin didn't think very much of it. I, a girl who was the top of art school throughout her life in Japan, suddenly no one seemed to care how well I could draw or how skillful I was. And that was a steep learning curve.
Hmm.
I didn't realize I have to talk so much and defend my work. Like why can it let the art speak?
Hmm.
That was the sort of culture in Japan. You don't present so much, and you don't certainly defend your work.
Hmm.
So that feistiness in a classroom in Central St. Martin was complete
Hmm.
cultural shock to me. I absolutely hated in the beginning. Just leave me to it. I work incredibly hard, but just don't make me stand there and defend my work. But anyhow, sorry, it's off the track. So you're asking me how I became a sculptor. That was the question, wasn't it? Uh, so my major as a
Hmm.
conceptual art major, I was focusing on a performance art, video installation, site-specific work for good 10 years. At at the same time, I had to live in London, and living
Hmm.
and making art is a biggest nightmare for any budding artist. You have to earn money, still make work,
Hmm.
and if you're making a conceptual work, gosh, the life is so much harder, right? If you have a work as a soundbite, if you have a work as video installation, number one, it's not even sellable. Number two, you have to find an incredible gallery rep in order for you to able to pay rent. And that wasn't happening to me. Plus, I had to find um,
Yeah.
someone who can sponsor me to carry on living and working as an artist in London. So
Hmm.
I had to hustle. I had a job, uh, uh, lots of jobs, anything I can get hand of so I can carry on doing my work. Then fast forward, I became slightly sick of doing a lot of computer work and hustling over mm, digital art. At the same time, I was getting extremely resentful of life because I wasn't able to live off from work. As a result, I was doing a lot of freelance work, anything from nannying, waitressing, art direction, set design, production, runner, anything you can imagine. I was getting exhausted. One day I woke up thinking, I miss clay. I was
Mhm.
playing with clay a lot ever since when I was a child. So it
Mhm.
was more my oasis, if you like, because I didn't need to be serious. I didn't need to write a statement. I didn't need to approach a gallery. This is something I want to do for myself. It's playful. I could draw in the air without no mm, outward pressure. So I created a little clay oasis for myself. This is like 10 years ago now. It turned out to be, it was rather,
Mhm.
hmm, rather healthy move.
Mhm. It's something you enjoyed.
Not just enjoy it, it, it was it was crucial to reconnect, rewire fingertip and my neurological pathway.
Mhm.
Because if you're doing a video art, let's say, you're most of the time you're editing, you're sitting in front of a computer. That's a lot of background work, nothing to do with raw material.
Mhm.
While when I'm performing, of course, it's body and it's space, it's raw materials, whatever that I happen to be using. Um, but clay, ceramics is, as you know, water,
Mhm.
fire, hand, and that's pretty much it. And centuries and centuries, ceramics technology hasn't changed. We use a fancier kiln to fire, but that other than that, clay is clay, water's water, fire's fire. And I could able to express something perhaps more honest.
Mhm.
And I also started to enjoy my ceramic work was talking to, let's say, real people. When you really make video art was site specific, something rather you have to read lots of copy to understand what's going
Mhm.
on. I was talking to very exclusive audience, people who either studied or speak such language as the conceptual art, and a majority of population don't speak conceptual art. If anything, I think people are afraid of, because if they start talking about contemporary art, they might look silly
Mhm.
or naive in some way or not cultural enough. So they don't like to engage.
Mhm.
Um, but ceramics was different.
Mhm.
It was talking to the people who perhaps didn't need to study conceptual art. It's you hold, you feel it's it's an object you can decorate your house with. It because I was so much more relaxed and I wasn't trying to produce artwork, um, in the beginning at
Mhm.
least. So people saw it as a perhaps decorative object,
Mhm.
something they can purchase and put it on your bookshelf. And that was actually wake up call for me. I wake up call because I forgot how important it was for me to talk to real people. The way that my painting or printmaking, uh, I was also making lots of etchings, more traditional fine art uh, medium. And I was so hungry for it. Someone's able to say, "What a beautiful painting," and I used to took that as a compliment. But if you study conceptual art, or if you're a conceptual artist, if someone goes, "Oh, that's beautiful," then I was like, "Oh, okay, I failed." You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's about the thinking of it or the thought, right? It's
Yeah.
not about what it looks like.
People are afraid of
Yeah.
beauty.
Yeah.
It's if anything is looking too nice to your eyes, immediately you're a failure as an artist today.
Yeah.
And I bought the idea too.
Mhm.
I I thought more reactionary, more grotesque, more challenging conceptually. I thought that's where I want to
Mhm.
be, and I pushed myself for it for
Well,
decades.
and it's like you conditioned yourself to think that way with the education and how you were surrounding
Sure.
yourself, right?
Mm. I admire those artists, and I still
Hmm.
do. I'm grateful for the education that I had uh, from Central Saint Martin, and I won't be who I am today if I didn't have that education too. But I feel like I'm in between uh, academic fine art background that I had and conceptual art backgrounds that I had. They became like a big soup now, and that's how I see myself. And I like this soup. I like talking to real people, and I really don't find offensive when people go, "Oh, that's really pretty, Grace." I'm like, "Well, that is pretty. I'm glad he's spoken to you some level."
Yeah.
So, did I answer your question? This is so vague, isn't it?
No, no, that's pretty good. I mean, you're giving me the layers of your background, the what made you who you are today, right? This you can't just pinpoint one specific instance that then
It,
led you this way, right? It's a number of things.
yeah, it's definitely number. I mean, life is complicated, as you
Mm,
know. Uh, but I feel like finally I'm trying to get meanness, the essence, and try not to be somebody else. Try not to be someone who I thought I should be,
mhm,
you know. And also I became mom. That was another thing.
mhm,
I didn't really like to produce the work that I wasn't able to explain to my son,
mhm,
you know.
mhm.
That was an
Yeah, and that's the way it is with
another
conceptual.
motivation. I mean, like if you saw my old work, I don't think my son would have. Well, I know that he won't understands.
Mhm,
Uh, so yeah, I can read a Foucault for him, but that's I don't want anyone to look at my work, and if you haven't read a Foucault or Nietzsche, you won't understand my work. That's not where I want to
mhm.
be.
Being a Japanese-born artist, has the culture, community, or landscape influenced your creative practice? See, you kind of already answered that, but has it been through context, form, or story that has been your ultimate reference point and influence? In other words, what initially starts your creative journey?
So I touched a little bit of background. It's probably I'm mixing everything up. I'm sorry,
That's okay.
breaking your structure. Um, this question is excellent question. In the last sort of decade, people do ask the singular question, why are you so obsessed with Japanese mythology? It's one of those questions I can't take it lightly because it turned out to be it's quintessential element of my work. And let's see. What hang on. So your questions are sorry. I need to break down your question. Your question is con
Wait, I can repeat
you want
it.
to know so you want to know how my Japanese heritage is influencing my work, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm. It it's influencing deeply. Like I said, one question that it follows me around. Why am I so obsessed with Japanese mythology?
And we'll be right back.
So this is actually it links up to the previous question. I abandoned my heritage in the beginning. For me to fit into Western art world, I desperately want to be a part of it. And it, just to give you an example, if you go to Japanese ceramicist studio, you would still see a fire god's house in the studio. Can you imagine that if I'm building a little fire spirit, fire god's house in a Central St. Martin's studio, giving a little sake before I fire my sculpture, sharing my lunch. I'll either be sent to hospital, or maybe they think that's a part of live performance. Um, it- or people walking through temple and you will see Komainu, which is a mystical lion statue, and people simply bow at essentially a rock, old rock, because they think it carries wisdom and it gives you courage and wisdom. I, some people might think Japanese are just so superstitious. Maybe there's a lot of unseen world is woven into today's society in Japan, i.e., ceramicist is casually bowing, sharing a lunch, and giving a sake to little spirit in a studio. That sounds insane in the West, but it's not in Japan. And I hated that side of Japanese culture being teenager.
Mm. I think you hate
So
everything when you're a teenager, though, right?
maybe. So as I came to London, I thought I have to. Hmm, what I was trying to reinvent myself to fit into the shape that's been pre-custom-made by conceptual art movement since the 60s.
Mm.
Of course, I thought I was successfully doing it. I don't think I could fool anyone, but anyhow, and turned out to be life is difficult and life is complicated and life is extremely tough sometimes.
Mhm.
When you're teenagers and 20s, life is not so tough. No disrespect to any younger artist.
Mhm.
Life is good, you're idealistic, your health is great, you don't have a family to look after, probably your parents are still in a good shape, your friends in a good shape. Uh, so you're clueless because you haven't suffered. It's counterintuitive, but more suffering that we go through, the stronger we become if we are able to face the suffering.
Mhm.
And Buddhism first line of Buddhism is that life is suffering. You may think that how gloomy is that? Turn out to be not so gloomy. Like life is full of suffering. We have to face death. We have to face illness, catastrophe, the wars breaking out, economical, collapse.
Mhm.
As I go through life tragedies, my sphere of, hmm, should I use the word atheism? Because I feel like I'm gonna be opening a can of worm. Mm,
What word are you saying?
it's because I plant myself in a godless society, which is the
Mhm. Oh, and so many people do, right? There's the atheists
yes,
and
yes.
all that.
And I'm not a religious person. Yes, I came from the Buddhist background and culturally Buddhist, but I never practiced. I only go to temple to eat nice thing. I go to New Year because that's where my friends are. I go to temple because my friends are getting married there. I'm that kind of
Mhm.
culturally Buddhist. People will laugh at me if someone said I'm a Buddhist because I don't see myself as a Buddhist. But what
Mhm.
I'm trying to get out of this, because I don't want your audience to be put off by this religious reference, God and deities and spirits.
Mhm.
All the things I abandoned turn out to be, it became very useful tool when I was very ill, or when I was in a hospital, or when I lost a loved one. It 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 often happened to people. Let's say, you have a road accident, and a lot of people are pissed off with God all of a sudden, even they're atheist. The
Yeah.
shaking a
Yeah.
fist at sky. What are they shaking a fist
Mm.
for? I was that person.
Mhm.
And I just became very curious. Okay, I'm suffering. It is difficult, and my conceptual art is just not cutting it.
Mhm.
I started to read a lot of Japanese folktale, mythology, things, the ones I used to hate because it didn't scientifically proven the any of the mystical story. You probably seen some of my sculpture collection, maybe Satori collection, let's say. It's a mountain god who hears people's lie, and if Satori hears lie, they eat people. I mean, that's what kind of nonsense is that? Do not lie. Okay, fair enough. But what's this Uhu? This character's mountain god's child and eating people. It felt like old-fashioned and backward when we're trying to shoot
Mm.
rocket up in the sky. We might be living in a Mars in the next century. What are we
Yeah.
what are we doing as like demons and spirits? Turn out to be. I was the one shallow-minded in reading a sentence too literally and not
Mhm.
seeing beyond what narrative carries, the weight the narrative carries. So these days, my work is sort of the bridge between past and today. I feel like it's my mission to decode mythologies that I once abandoned. I thought, that's not true. Bin it, I thought. It turned out to be, that's really not wise. That's really stupid, really. That's because I thought the old man was beard, that doesn't exist. Uh, Mystical river does not exist. And I didn't really question what it might be. What really is Satori? What is this, mountain god? Is this evil character? Or is this not, it's a lot of like decoding there. All
Yeah.
of as I ask for help going through life tragedies, it became very helpful, this mythology, because it carried a lot of, mm, it gave me a solid guide.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking maybe it gave you, like, you realized that it wasn't about how the stories, if they could be real or not, that it was more a metaphorical understanding
Mm, for sure.
of them. Hmm.
And if some of the stories that I'm reading, it is thousand and thousand years old, and that's including when people did not know how to write. So most of the story was, great great grandparents was telling kids, right? Because
Hmm.
they believed that story was significant enough to pass on. And today's still exists. That's got to be something.
Hmm.
It carries the weight. So then suddenly I got little chills in my back, n- thinking of how old some of the mythologies are. And today we feel like we were tremendous. We shooting a rocket, we have an internet and um, incredible technology, M marvelous.
Yeah.
We hardly ever die, you know.
Yeah. The medical
Uh,
advances. Yeah.
and but we are hosting a bunch of different kind of problem today. People laugh at the first world problem. The Uber didn't show up on time. Oh my gosh, internet is, I don't know, 3 bar left.
Hmm.
Panic, right?
Mm.
Where's the 4G,
Mm.
5G?
Yeah.
Um, oats milk is running out. It's
Yeah.
like, what are we gonna drink with coffee now? But this joke is not a joke. It's a serious matter because most of us are suffering with depression and we don't know how to deal with death, and we're living a life soulless and not fulfilling, and that turned out to be a catastrophic problem for
Hmm.
today's society. And this mythology somehow offers that guide, and that influences my work tremendously. So going back to the first question, no, sorry, the second question is, how does it influence? This is my long-winded way of influence. I believe these uh, gift from ancestors are the key to move forward, progress as a human into future.
Hmm.
So I'm excavating those stories out
Hmm.
using my ceramics object.
Hmm.
Hope I
And
answered your question.
and you're weaving the stories into your stories.
Yes, for sure. My
Hmm.
work is always deeply personal. Um,
Hmm.
uh, for me, it has to be personal.
Hmm.
I don't know any artist who can produce artwork without being too personal. Well, I can't speak for everyone. At least for me, it has to be deeply personal. Sometimes when I look back and see the work I was making, let's say, 20 years ago, I feel like embarrassed. Oh my gosh, what the hell am I talking about? But it was important for me. Maybe I was going through relationship problem, sexual revolution, whatever the suffering that I was facing.
Hmm.
I'm reacting to that, right? And I think that's the only way to do it, at least for me. Uh, so yes, it's deeply personal. As I go through early motherhood right now, uh, it that woven into my current art practice.
Reading about your floating coffins killing your soul piece, and this is your clay warrior figurines that are protecting the
Mm.
dead in the afterlife.
Mhm.
One of your most recent work, you were afraid to not be an artist as you saw yourself becoming your worst self. Would you say
Mm.
ultimately this piece connected you more honestly with yourself or your local art community? Was creating these Japanese figurines your talisman, a form of peace offering to your larger creative practice? Or is it more a cultural offering to your cultural heritage? Mhm.
So, so okay, I'll try to answer a bit by bit. The Haniwa, so my last solo show, Killing Your Own Soul.
Mhm.
Uh, I presented over 50 Haniwa warriors. Haniwas are traditional talisman uh, in coffin era. Mm, We we used to bury Haniwa warriors with dead. That's because when human's body dies, soul would depart the body and go through the new journey. And Haniwa warriors meant to protect soul's new journey.
Mhm.
Um, so this warriors, mhm, they're made up with earthenware. Uh, some of them are really big, actually. It's as big as a little child. And if you arrive to Japan, just look out of your airplane. If you see, looks like a tiny little uh keyhole, that's actually tomb. And underneath, those are a big tomb. Underneath, often king or queen's body, with literally some of the uh, tomb has thousand and thousand of warriors. They're all protecting all around I mean, obviously, dead bodies gone. Uh, in Osaka, where I grew up, um, hmm, there was a lot of archaeologists was working and digging warriors out. My brothers and I have two brothers.
Mhm.
We used to go around Osaka, skateboarding, BMXing, uh, watching Haniwa warriors being dug out carefully, immaculately by archaeologists.
Mhm.
It was rather it left a strong impression to me. One, I somehow liked this warrior being discovered out of someone's grave. Uh, I like the look of it, and I like these hundred of archaeologists using a brush and little shovels and taking forever to rescue these figurines. It looked like they had an important mission to deliver. Meanwhile, it was our part of playground, skating around, watching the Haniwa warriors being dug out one by one, and sometimes they line them up together. So if you're lucky, you get to see 100 of them all together. What a treasure.
Hmm.
First thought, in London, there's a metro, we call it tube, because Central Line. It goes between West London to East London. Go through the city London, Liverpool Street, where a lot of office and banks are located. I'll be on the Central Line.
And we'll be right back.
Let's say around 5, 6 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, and people looking sharp as you reach city, bank, Liverpool, Moorgate. People looks very well groomed and well dressed, but exhausted from life. And things that I often hear, thank God it's Friday. You know, and and I always thought, what a peculiar thing to say. Thank God it's Friday. I made notes to myself. This will keep happening. Every week I meet these well-groomed people. They have more watch
Hmm.
than they need, and their shoes are shiny. Their nails are very groomed, but they seem dying inside. In fact, they would actually use those words too. Oh my gosh, I'm dying. Dying from what? I thought. Then this honey word came back to me. Yes, the original animal was made to protect the soul
Hmm.
departing from dead body after death. I thought perhaps we need a animal more than ever to protect the soul while when we're still alive. So that's how I started to make Hanima. So that's how I started to make Hanima. That's how I started to make this warrior. Didn't think about making a solo show or turning into collection, anything like that. It felt like a necessity to react to the situation. It was unfolding in front of my eyes. So that was impulse to how I started to make.
Yeah, and you connected more honestly with what was going on around you.
For sure.
Sounds like it.
But honest, also for my own soul too. As I said, as an artist, when you are not able to live, you hustle. You have perhaps more straight job, um, and sometimes you don't get the balance right. You keep doing a side hustle because money might runs out. Living in London's extremely expensive,
Hmm.
uh, and you don't know when next side hustle opportunity will come. So you sometimes you guzzle too much, and you witness your own soul uh, getting collapsed. At the same time, if I wasn't the kind of artist who's going to be living on a street, um, and creates work for nothing. I think I'll be too stressed to
Hmm.
make my work if I can't pay my own rent and kids are not getting fed. Um, so I also watched
Hmm.
my soul too. So that in that sense,
Hmm.
honest reaction to what was happening in the world or my immediate reality and
Hmm.
my own soul too. I just watched as if I'm a hawk in the sky, hovering around, what is going on here? Because something
Hmm.
was going terribly wrong. That central line carries, I don't know how many, God knows how many people. All the hearts are still beating, the souls are departing. I mean, an endless escalator. London Underground is quite deep, and you see the people going up and down, and escalated, and they're all saying, "Thank God it's Friday." And that surely we had to act on it. Well, that's how I felt. So,
Your Hanawa piece, it wasn't about because I was saying that I was asking you, is it a form of a peace offering for your creative practice, or is it more of a cultural offering for your heritage? But it's kind of really neither. It's more about the present moment and what you saw around you.
mm, yes, for sure. All my pieces uh, begins like that way. I collect the things bugs me, the things that keeping me awake in the middle of the night. You know, I I'm not the kind of artist walking around in the forest and
Mm.
ta-da, I'm inspired. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. If anything, the way I make work is more gloomy. Things bothering me, things are bugging me, and just miss the bug. There's
Mhm.
100 of them, obviously. And I just wait, watch which bugs are speaking loudest. And one by one, I'll try to offer my solution in my own way. And that's usually turns into collection, that turns into an exhibition. Ah, sorry. Uh, yes, yes, yes. Oh.
And let's clarify for the audience. Uh,
Hmm.
No does not make bugs in her ceramics. Just in case they may get confused. No, they're not bugs. It's what bugs her that that she makes.
Oh,
Yeah.
mm, the style question. Often this
Well,
comes
thank
from
you for that.
younger
I
artists.
often get to ask this question,
Uh,
and I really like it.
it,
How do you develop your style? Or maybe the real
this
question
is
is, how do you
in the beginning. I
become
didn't like this question. I'm like, what
distinctive?
does it mean? How do you develop your style? It's me. I thought rather peculiar. You make it so that it's your style. But then I had to confront that question more deeply because I was getting that questions a lot. uh, the short answer is make a mirror, but perhaps this is too abstract. So how do we make a mirror? When I say mirror, you have to be deeply, deeply, brutally honest and be vulnerable. And that's what I mean. And why is that mirror? Because if you really see yourself, other people actually see themselves. And people are afraid to be honest. And that stops them, the fear of being naked in front of crowd. And but we have to go through this. I often think when I make work and when I judge,
Mhm.
am I being as honest as I can be here? the marker is often, it feel a bit dangerous. You feel like, oh, I don't want to go there. It feels too naked, too vulnerable. And that's about right. I think that, I tell myself, oh, I pushed hard enough, further enough.
Mhm.
Then a strange thing happen. It's counterintuitive, yet a lot of people starts connecting with your work as you go naked because they see themselves. You're giving them an opportunity to see themselves naked too. And that's when people start valuing artist work, not just with their time and energy, but with money. So
Mhm.
that's how you become distinctive, just making a mirror.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay, becoming a mother and an artist has been a bit of a struggle for you, both with your father being an artist and the overwhelming responsibilities. How have you seen continuing to be a creative as a benefit to your family as a whole?
That's a good question because I was terrified to be mom. Um, I, I I believe that children will hijack my life, my career. There's something I worked so hard for so long and turn out to be it's never a good time. At least it was never a good time for me. Also, we live in a society where we were told the career is the most important things, and I took that to my heart. I worked incredibly hard, and I was definitely career driven throughout the 20s and 30s. But here's the problem. My belief is as long as I'm focused and I work as hard as I can,
Mhm.
my work will be good, or at least I won't have any regret left. So that was my rationale. As the career
Mhm.
develops, you have more opportunity, bigger opportunity, and you certainly don't want to miss any opportunities. And the type of probably any artist, most of your audience are probably artists, right? Or maybe not. How would you define your audience?
So far, yeah, it's mostly art. It's our artists. Yeah.
Hmm. So for us, we're the kind of people who work to death. We were working throughout the night, that's
Mm,
no problem. Working 10, 12 hours straight in a
yeah.
studio, that's not a problem. If this was the office worker, that would be insane. If someone asked you to work throughout the night and they come back 9 o'clock the following day. uh, so when you have a work approach, it's not a good time, right? To be a pregnant and stuck with babies and kids. I rejected that idea for gosh, many years. However, my husband had a different view. Uh, I actually know him for a very long time. Um, even when he was in early 20s, he was already talking about it will be cool to be dad. He can imagine having a multiple kids. I mean, can you imagine when you're 20s? Did you think about having a kids when you're 20s? I mean, I don't even know how old you are. Did you think about kids?
Yeah, no, I did not in my 20s, no.
Are you in 30s, 40s? I mean, how
40. I'm in my
do
40s
you
now,
have
yeah.
kids?
No, I do not.
And
But I have 10 nieces and nephews, so I feel that's pretty good.
so hmm, I I was going through
Mm,
a marriage crisis because the one person, as I was approaching 40 in late 30s, he's I understood that work is really important for you, career is important for you, and he forgave me throughout the 20s. He said that's no problem. 30s till mid 30s, there was no problem. After mid 30s, it became shaky. Shaky because
mhm,
he felt his life is not completed without being father. And somehow he knew that he will be a decent father. And him telling me, his name is Ed, Ed telling me I'll be a
mhm,
good mother. That was just like, number one, how do you know? Number two, I don't even want the kids. And number three, I, I tested myself with my girlfriends are having a kids
mhm.
by then. I, I mean, like I liked kids, but like over the, lunch. I don't mind having a
Yeah.
little kids
Yeah.
around on Saturday afternoon. That's fun, but I, I want to go
Mhm.
back to my studio. What if I have an opportunity I can't jump on it? It just sounds like they're gonna hijack my life.
Mhm.
What a terrible idea, I thought. But at the same time, I didn't want to give up on our marriage. As terrified as it was, resentful I was, I agreed to have a first child. Issei.
Mhm.
He's 6, almost 7 now. And I became mom 6 years ago. Turned out to be, what a surprise. It was incredibly good for me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I can't sugarcoat this. They do hijack my life, obviously, because they're kids. They need mother. But all the things that I was afraid of,
Mhm.
it turned out to be, it was just made up story from my frontal cortex. The biggest mistake or the things I could not imagine, I didn't realize that kids would actually help me to make better work, more meaningful, it gave more depth. And I was so selfish. It was all about my work. I was the kind of a girlfriend who would cancel Valentine's Day dinner because I'm inspired. I need to stay in the studio. I'll see you at home when I come out. Christmas dinner. Oh, I'm inspired. I'll be there. Don't know when.
Yeah.
You know, it,
You sacrificed
but
everything for your creativity.
sorry, say that again.
I said, "Oh, you were sacrificing everything for your creativity."
Yeah, I thought that's what the artist meant to do. um, Turn out to be that selfishness, it stinks. So
Mhm.
it leaks and it stunk my work too. It's self-centered stinks. And motherhood is ultimate wake-up call. Suddenly you become secondary. And that was
Mhm.
actually really nutritious element of my life. It became so clear. If someone asked me, who would you die for? It's one of those questions I would have laughed at.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a stupid question.
And we'll be right back.
you become mom, that become very clear. Oh, I know who I'm going to die for. And I actually, that gave me a new set of colors that I didn't even know that I had in me. Actually, I had to change everything. I had to change where I work in a studio. Those like 12 hours non-stop working, it's impossible, obviously. I'm still breastfeeding my youngest one. So I started to work quickly and have a break and come back and go back to the studio again. In the beginning, I absolutely hated.
Mm.
I thought this is interrupting my flow. How am I going to ever make a large scale installation? Actually, maybe I don't need to make a large scale installation. And the 12 hours non-stop, there's no such thing, 12 hours non-stop anyway. I don't know what I was doing 10 years ago, but I was working long hours
Hmm.
and I thought I was working hard. Now I work really efficiently. And when I have to take a break because you have to change nappy or you have to breastfeed the baby, I go
Hmm.
back and I see I see the
Hmm.
fault almost immediately because my mind had to be hijacked and I had to go back in again. And that process is kind of interesting. I work faster, smaller scale, and I make decision fast. As a result, I became more intuitive. Uh, so yeah, it's like practically it was interesting the way I
Hmm.
changed uh, dealing with clay, sculpture, and philosophically, it was a complete wake up call. I I would I would probably advise 20 something years old me to don't be afraid and don't miss it because they're ridiculously
Hmm.
funny. And of course it's hard, but they change your life in in a way the modern world can describe. And that would end up feeding your artwork because it's feeding you as a human.
Hmm.
I often say to younger artists, there's a one studio where you produce work, you work. Actually, no, first studio is called life. That's all the raw material. That's most important ingredients for your work. It comes from first studio called life. And second studio is where you make work. You feed your raw material into the second studio. And if you think that way, it makes sense, right? The motherhood
Hmm.
thinks I was terrified. Of course, it's going to end up feeding me as a human. So I could feed more colors, more energy, more depths, more thinking into the second studio. Every heartbreak, every catastrophe would feed artwork. Obviously, that's historically been proven. So I have
So
no
how
idea
would
why I was so afraid. But now I have 4 kids actually. Yeah, and my studio, ceramic studio with 4 kids. Can you imagine? I have no idea how I'm making work ever. Anyway, yeah.
so how would you say your materials impact or change your sculpture? More specifically, how does your choice of materials influence meaning? Do you choose your media before you begin sculpting, or does the material itself shape the work?
So I mainly use clay right now. Um, so what do you mean by how do I choose my medium?
Well, it's just always clay. You never work with other mediums, kind of thing.
Oh, I see. I stay open-minded. As I
Hmm.
explain that to you, the journey of my work, I pay attention to things that it bugs me. And that's bothers, shall I say, bothers me. And sometimes I keep it in a drawing form or
Hmm.
writing form. I like writing. Writing crystallize my thoughts.
Hmm.
If you have an open-minded personal trait, your mind is everywhere and it's constantly chattering. So, writing keeps my mind still and it crystallizes. My writing often reveals what I what's in my mind. Then as I write, I go, oh, sometimes it's like one sentence. Ah, this is what was bothering me. And that then I can start sketching endlessly, for instance. Uh, and I
Hmm.
pick medium according to that. So whatever the bothering me and my answer sounds like that's too big. Uh, how can I shed the light to this problem? What I deeply believe
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
the problem that suffocating humanity today. And if that lights need to be through video performance, I'll do that with a video performance. If that need to be through a painting, I'll do that with painting.
Hmm.
But at this stage of my life, I love using clay, fire, water, and my hand. Very, very basic ceramic studio. It's nothing
Hmm.
fancy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because
And
I'm
very ancient
decoding an
too.
ancient wisdom, Japanese mythologies, mostly. It somehow makes sense. And I like the fact that those ancestors, they weren't even artists, the people who were using it just mud and, fire pits to fire the
Hmm.
talisman. I actually enjoy using the same technology, same material with them. Um, so for now that
Hmm.
this medium works for me, but who knows, tomorrow, I I might need to go back to do site specific installation that it disappears overnight. Maybe.
Hmm.
So I stay open-minded. This is why, because I've been producing ceramic sculpture for decades. People started to call me a ceramicist. Uh, I, I, I,
Hmm.
hmm. I try to keep myself just an artist. You know what I mean? Because that name I found it very
Hmm.
dangerous. Because if you name yourself, well, I didn't. People named me as a ceramicist. Uh, I'll become one. So that's dangerous. So I often say, well, no, I'm just artist. I use clay today. I don't, yeah. I'm curious because it's a podcast. It takes so much of your energy and time, and I mean, I don't even know whether you can live off from doing a podcast. So I'm always curious. How, uh, well, good luck because I think people are hungry for a meaningful, long format interview.
Yeah. No, it's not yet, but I'm working on it, so we'll see.
I think so. Art world is a small.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's helping. I like it. And yeah, yeah, and I think I haven't seen very many other sort of people doing this, so I don't know. I think it's helping. I think it's good to be sort of an aside to the artist or
Mm.
you know, just be a part of the art community still, in a
Well,
supportive way.
that's how that artist spirit always has been, right? We always find rundown landscape where it's cheap to live, and you go in there and do nice thing, and paint a few things and graffitis and do the performance art on the street and ta-da, until the organic cafe pops up and bankers slowly started to buy out. Then we move on to another space and we do nice thing again.
Yeah.
So, you're just doing it in a soundscape,
Yeah.
globally available. And I love that you're offering this soundscape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm enjoying it. And I'm hoping
Mm.
to make some money
Mm.
with this because I could get advertisers on here like
Mm.
galleries and art stores and then other advertisers as well. So, but yeah, it is a lot of work, but I'm like, you know what? I like it. So it's good.
Great. You have a great energy. I hope you will be successful. I'll speak to you soon. Yes.
You too. Bye. Join me next time as I go down another rabbit hole with another creative professional on their insights, their inspirations, and their ingenuity.